Well, hello there, everybody. I'm your host, Didi Verg, on Let's Talk Hypnosis, brought to you by Hypnothoughts Live 2018. And it is my very special privilege to be introducing the Elmans. Welcome, Larry and Cheryl.
Oh, thank you for inviting us, Didi.
You're very welcome. So, for those of you who don't know, the Elmans come from lineage. They come from Dave Elman, who is, you hear about him in every hypnosis class. I mean, he pioneered medical hypnosis. But let me tell you about let me tell you first about Cheryl and then about Larry, and you can, so that you understand a little bit more about them and how they've been able to carry on this wonderful tradition. So, Cheryl Elman is an accredited sleep talk presenter. She's president also of the Dave Elman Institute. And she is trained and presented in 18 countries and 5 continents alongside her husband, Larry Elman, and they run the Dave Elman Hypnosis Center. And Colonel H Larry Elman, Dave Elman's son, took his father's course several times before attending MIT. However, during careers in engineering in the Air Force, Larry had to restrict his hypnosis activities. But now, as CEO of the Dave Elman Hypnosis Institute, Larry lectures and teaches hypnosis internationally, as well as writing books on hypnosis subjects and producing CDs and DVDs that demonstrate Dave Elman's medical hypnosis methods. So at this year's Hypnothoughts, both of you are going to be giving a couple of 1 to 2 hour seminars, as well as longer 1 and 2 days, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So Cheryl, let's talk with you first, because Sleep talk is pretty renowned. And this is where you hypnotically speak to children, is it not? Before they go to sleep? Or maybe you can explain better for our audience.
Yes. Sleep talk for children, we actually, as consultants, do not work with the children. We train parents to talk to their children 2 to 3 minutes a night during their sleep cycle. And what it does, this process, this protocol, is meant to help build that child's self-esteem and emotional resilience. So for many therapists, both therapists, psychotherapists, hypnotists, often we work with children and then we send them home. And, the children have improved, but if the environment doesn't change,
right,
often everything starts spinning backwards and backslides a lot of the work you've done, because of, what's going on in the environment at home or in school, or maybe they're being bullied, and so this helps really make a whole shift in the family. It's very cool.
Yes, and of course, if the parents feel like they're participating in their child's well-being, so what are the impacts of talking to children during and what part of the sleep cycle is it specifically?
It's usually about an hour into sleep.
Okay.
And the impact is that, I have parents often that say, oh, I talk to my children every night when they go to sleep or when they're sleeping. And I ask them what they say. You are beautiful. You are going to be a doctor. It's all these things. My daughter, the doctor, my son, the politician. In other words, it's the parents' agenda.
Right.
It's not necessarily, it puts pressure on children. So it's more of the same that sometimes they're hearing during the day.
And I would think it would create a conflict if that's not the purpose, purposeful living the child has in mind.
Exactly.
Right. And what go ahead.
No. And so this process gives them a protocol. So my husband Larry was the child in hypnosis attached to sleep that his father experimented on.
Okay.
But the difference is Dave was doing hypnosis in Larry's sleep to get to the core of some of his allergies.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But he was 12 years old, and it did work quite a bit, and he let Larry continue to not understand where it all came from, because it was a traumatic experience that happened when he was about 4.
Okay.
So, but the difference is Dave knew hypnosis. But Larry then, sat up one day and said, don't do that anymore, Daddy, and he didn't. So
it's fascinating. So did you improve upon what he did with your own experimentation, or did he, by the time he passed on, was Dave like proficient in sleep talk?
Well, again, he was not. He did experiment with it with clients, but they're not there sleeping. I mean, you're getting
Right.
them to a certain point. What Joan Goulding developed sleep talk.
Okay.
And Joan Goulding had a child who had special needs, several of them. And they finally didn't diagnose it till she was about 7. By then she was, she didn't have much communication.
Mm-hmm.
She...
Pesky little cell phones.
She didn't have communication with her daughter. And she was a bit of a wild child during the day, so how could they communicate with her? So they came up with the idea, first of all, in Victoria, Australia, it was
Right.
illegal to do hypnosis.
Oh.
In fact, her and her husband had a school where they did hypnosis, but they only taught the theory. And then they went into the next province or state to do the actual clinical. They'd go on a field trip, come back, and then they'd graduate. So they took the theoretical for years, but they weren't allowed to actually do, in Victoria, the state of Victoria, they were not allowed to do any hypnosis.
Isn't that amazing when we look back at the history of hypnosis? If it's that threatening, it must mean that it works.
So she was so she and her husband actually worked very hard to get it legal, and they did. So they came up with the idea of talking to her in her sleep.
Okay.
And that helped to build her self-esteem, and it opened up communication, and it gave her words. It made all these changes, in this child. It opened up, she had an emotional resilience. If you think about it, a child goes out during the day, or even at home, so many parents, I always ask, how many people are parents out there? They raise their hand. How many times has your child come over and said to you something they were excited about, or they wanted your attention, and you said, "Not now, I'm busy"?
Ooh,
Well,
yeah.
that child felt rejected. Now, as hypnotists, we know that so often when we're working with regressions, that initial sensitizing event could be something as little as a feeling of rejection in something as inconsequential
That's
as
right.
that would seem. But then it built on it.
Yeah,
that
they
feel-
start to form a belief about themselves that they're not worthy.
Right. So this whole thing is to create a positive belief system
Wonderful.
in that child. And so the way the protocol is structured, this
Mhm.
process, it's that the parents have distinct set of sentences that they use initially. The
Okay.
foundation statements,
Right.
which are very open-ended. It allows the child to put in the information that child needs that day. By using open-ended statements. And then that child's self-esteem starts building. So even if there's negative beliefs that we know they stay there forever, the positive beliefs going in every day
Mhm.
helps to override those negative beliefs.
Yes, because I guess when they're in that sleep state, it just goes straight in, just like the hypnotic trance.
Right.
Right. Oh, that is wonderful. So what are some of the results you've seen? Because you've been doing this many years and across many cultures and many countries. So what are some of the miraculous stories you've seen as a result of sleep talk?
So one of the first families I worked with, and again, it's a family that gets that whole shift. There's an assessment that we do, as consultants, and there's, I think, 30 some odd or 40. One day I'm going to remember that number. Different, attributes that the
Right.
parents are giving you a scale of where that child is that day, or that snapshot of that child. And out of the scale of very poor to excellent, this one child had 19, poor and very poor.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so within about 3 to 4 weeks, the
Mhm.
changes were so drastic that those went up to only about 4,
Mm-hmm.
poor and very poor, and the rest had moved up on the scale.
That's
That
amazing.
he was having meltdowns twice a week. His dad was working late. He was having meltdowns. that would last. He had a lot of sibling rivalry issues.
Mm-hmm.
It can help with bedwetting. It can help with allergies, ADHD. So there's such a wide variety, just like in hypnosis, a wide variety of what this can help with.
Okay, and I know because this year Larry's doing a talk on Semantics, the Heart of Hypnosis, so that's wording. So are there any, because I know you're going to inform and educate the parents on how to speak, but for those watching here today, what are the things you should never say in sleep talk?
In general?
In general, yes.
Because my actual thing that I'm speaking on is going to be the formation of positive and negative belief systems in children.
Right.
And it's interesting, when I was going through the things that you wouldn't say, like, you're stupid,
Yes.
I mean, that's more obvious. But it was interesting when I was researching that and putting that together between what Joan had given us and then I did some on my own. It was interesting to see, let's see, you are smart, or always saying good job. This one was one that surprised me. It gets to the point where you know that you're supposed to say good job, and all of a sudden you're saying good job, you're not even thinking about it.
Right.
So if the child is always doing a good job, it might keep them from trying harder if everything they do is a good job, as opposed to, saying something.
It's not special.
Right, it is not special. You must feel really good. You worked hard at that. So it opens it up to it, that they have done it, and didn't that feel good, and they accomplished it and feeling it for themselves.
Yeah, that's a very important distinction. And if
Yes.
and what should parents say as opposed to, like, so we know what they shouldn't say and what they should say in terms of good job, but what else have you noticed is just a blanket statement that parents can make in sleep talk that just generally helps?
You are loved.
You are loved.
You are lovable is one of the ones that I think is key to that process, to that statement.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Cheryl, for sharing a little bit about sleep talk. And you're doing a pre or post? What is it you're doing?
I'm doing a 2-day pre-course on the 21st and 22nd, Tuesday and Wednesday, on sleep talk for children. There'll be additional, it's not just you take this course and you're done. It's actually about a 6-month process, because you're going to do 3 case studies.
Right.
So, you get the tools to do it, and then there'll be additional webinars along the way where we get together and discuss it, and then you work up 3 case studies, and then it gets submitted, and then you become a certified international sleep talk consultant. When you take the 2 courses, or the 2-day course with me, you do go on to the sleep talk website, the international website, as an intern. So you are an intern at that point, and you work your way and work on the case studies, and it's been really good. And
for those who are interested, do you have a directory, a worldwide directory that you refer people to and parents to of sleep talk practitioners in their area?
Yes, there is a sleeptalkchildren.com, which is the overall directory, or the overall website for the, it's now also referred to as the Goulding process of sleep talk for children.
Wonderful.
Which is the full thing.
Excellent.
And my website is sleeptalkchildren.us.
Okay, that's perfect for all those people who are parents or even teachers or social workers or anything attending Hypnothoughts. I highly, highly, highly urge you to take Cheryl's course, because, I mean, if it's something as easy as uttering these phrases that they're going to learn how to do when your child is sleeping, you can't not do that for them.
Right, and it actually works its way to level 2 when you do a reassessment. Then you start specializing the statements and giving the parents the idea of how to go about creating statements in the future. So this is a process and a gift that lasts a lifetime.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome, and I hope to see you all at Hypnothoughts. We love Hypnothoughts. It's really one of our favorite conferences to go to. It's the first thing we stick on our schedule. Who else would go to Las Vegas in August?
True enough.
But, I mean, it has become a really good focal point for us.
Yes.
For our business and our friendships and networking. So please come. It's just a lot of fun.
It
Lots
sure
of
is.
people, different. It's very international.
Yes, it is.
So,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Didi, and I'll turn you over to Larry.
Larry. Okay, so Larry, welcome.
Whoops. Is that good?
That is fantastic. Still going strong. Can I say it?
Yep.
80 years old, everybody. Congratulations. He's 80 and he is still going strong. And look how amazing you look.
Well, thank you. Coming from a gorgeous lady, that's especially a welcome comment.
So, Larry, you're, are you doing a 1 hour, 2 hour on Semantics, the Heart of Hypnosis?
I'm doing a 1 hour on Semantics, and I'm also doing a 1 day pre-course.
Okay, so let's talk first about Semantics, because everything in hypnosis is wording, right? So tell us, why are words so important when it comes to hypnosis, and in particular, giving suggestions?
Okay, it's more than just giving suggestions. You're correct, but let's expand on this for a moment. First, let me mention that I gave a talk with the same title at Hypnothoughts several years ago, but it's been expanded and revised thoroughly, because what I ask whenever I give any course is for feedback from my students, my audience. What would you have liked me to include that didn't get in there, so on and so forth. So this is an entirely new course. Semantics. Most people take that just as the meanings of the words they say, and as every hypnotist knows, his primary tool is his voice. But think for a moment. Supposing you say something that you're sure is correct and is a helpful suggestion, but you've got a look on your face like, boy, am I giving whatever. If they happen to look at that point, you've just blown your own suggestion.
Right.
Semantics is more than just your words. It's your attitude. It's all sorts of other details. Most hypnotists prefer to work one-on-one. The client is in the therapy room. The hypnotist is in the therapy room. Everybody else is separate. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes a spouse or a kid or somebody insists on being in the same room. Where do you position them? Outside of the peripheral vision of the client. Okay. Otherwise, the look on their face is a suggestion, and it may help you. It may counter what you're saying. You don't put that possibility there. There's a whole series of do's and don'ts involving things beyond just the words.
Sure.
But then the words are extremely important. Supposing you're dealing with academic enhancement. Don't say, and you won't fail this test.
Yeah, because they have to think fail first in order to think of succeed.
Yeah, exactly. You say, you're going to do so well on this test, you're going to reach exactly your goal.
Okay.
Or exceed it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or exceed it. So open up possibilities for them.
Right. Every suggestion should be positive.
Okay.
But not only should every suggestion be positive, if you have to ask them for clarification on a point they've made in telling you their problem, ask your clarification in a positive manner.
Okay, so can you give us an example of that?
Sure. Whoops. That's a little bit tough. Let me give it another example.
Okay.
A little bit off from there. If I'm going to discuss the relationship between a student and a teacher, where, by the way, I had a couple of these myself, you ask, what can be improved? Or, tell me something good you're getting out of that class.
Right.
Oh, that's good, but such and such is giving a problem. How can we solve it?
Okay, I got it. You're
I'm
asking
being
for
positive.
solutions.
I'm not saying, what can you say to that blankety blank? It's not the way to go. You don't use words like fail with academic enhancement. You don't say fat when you're dealing with weight management.
Mm-hmm.
You don't say pain when you're dealing with anesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole series of these, and we have several lists like this that will be covered, always with the comment at the end of, okay, guys, you add to the list. Help my next class. Let's see what else we can add. And, which is, by the way, one of the reasons this isn't the same as it was 3 years ago.
Yes.
We've looked at what people say, and we've added to it. And the peripheral vision thing, I got that when I attended a course by Ron Esslinger.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say it quite the way I say it, but he got that point across very forcefully. And I thought, gee, that's something I should be doing also.
Sure.
I've taken a whole bunch of those things. So that gives you an insight into the 1 hour. Let me give you some insight into the 1 day course. The rare recordings of Dave Elman. My father was recorded in class for something over 30 hours of the classes themselves. He also made recordings of his sessions with the doctor's patients. He made recordings of his own talks outside of class, made in the studios. The total number of hours of his recorded material that has survived is somewhere between 40 and 50 hours. There was probably more, but I'm talking what has survived to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Spent several years trying to get every one of the recordings that still exists. And obviously in a 1 day session, I'm not going to play all 50 hours. It doesn't fit. But what I've done is I've gone through them and grabbed particularly interesting interactions between him and his students, or between him and his students' patients.
Okay.
Now, one thing that the listener is encouraged to do is notice the waking hypnosis intro to almost any induction. You don't just walk up to somebody and start an induction. You discuss the induction from a positive viewpoint of you'll go right into hypnosis, everybody does, and then you do the induction. Now, saying what I just said, that's very simple, but watching it done several times, you get variants on it that allow you to match with whatever are the reactions of your client, or the doctors would always say patient, but you're getting those reactions. You're listening for tone of voice. You're listening for what is a positive versus what is a negative statement.
Mm-hmm.
Are there negative statements? Yes, remember these recordings were made in the 1950s. The result is it was not objectionable or even noticeable that some doctor would point to one of his patients he brought in and say, Dave, work on that fat lady over there.
Oh. Wow.
You don't do that. But in the 1950s, this was socially acceptable.
Sure.
If a hypnotist today gets hold of some of my father's recordings and comes across that, he or she is scandalized.
Sure.
No. Look at it from the point of view of changes in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, take the lesson that you shouldn't do this, but force yourself to think, why not, and what can I do that's better? So even the goofs are useful.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to play that, I'm going to discuss it.
And I understand that you've done all that you can to get them technologically enhanced so that they're much better quality.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes, very definitely. And remember, if you're going to do this, the feedback from the student, the extent to which the student notices something, is extremely important. It doesn't penetrate the students if I say it, but if I say it and some student then gives a supplementary example, the other students say, wow, gee whiz, yeah, I hit that last month. I hit that last month, but I didn't analyze it.
Right.
So I encourage that type of approach.
So this is also, you mentioned that it's going to be a lot of discussion involved. So that's what you mean by discussion. So comparatively speaking, encouraging and sharing of information.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Wonderful. That's wonderful, Larry. Well, thank you so much for being with us and all your wise words of wisdom, having been doing this for, I'm sure, at least 60 years.
Not quite. There was the time I had to take off because of security clearances. You mentioned earlier that for somebody to be opposed to hypnosis, it implies, gee, they know it works, and gee, they're scared of it. So when I spent a number of years in the Air Force being cautioned, you've got a security clearance, don't do any hypnosis, I was thinking to myself, how foolish, how unaware of what it can do.
And I think there's also, a lot of fear around it too, because sometimes people perceive hypnotists as having magical power or the ability to make you do something that you don't want to do. So anyway, again, it's a statement of how we've evolved, societally speaking. So thank you very much for being with us. I look forward to seeing the both of you at Hypnothoughts. And everybody, if you want to go sign up for Larry's and Cheryl's courses, hi. Then htlive.net. Pardon me?
Thanks very much for the opportunity you've given us.
Oh, no problem. No problem. It was my pleasure. So thank you very much for the both of you. htlive.net for those of you who want to go right up and sign up for either Cheryl or Larry's courses. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.